This is the Voyage Report podcast, where you get the scoop on travel. Now, the editor-in-chief of the Voyage Report, Mark Albert.
Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome. A couple of podcasts ago, we had Ask the Captain. A commercial airline pilot joined us to answer everything you ever wanted to know. Well, today, we're going to get the inside scoop from the other key crew members on board, the flight attendants. Joining us today is Mia Herman. She's a flight attendant at a major U.S. airline. Mia is talking to us via Skype from Redondo Beach, California. Mia, welcome to the Voyage Report podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
This is wonderful. I have a whole lot of questions for you, so let's just start right off real simply. What has been your biggest discovery while traveling as a flight attendant? We ask that of all of our guests, and I'm really interested to hear your answer.
Well, I guess I would have to say my biggest discovery is that I have a really strong marriage. My husband, when I first started flying, he would call me, say, where do we keep the dish soap? Where's the dog food? I don't think he quite figured things out when I first started flying. But, now he's gotten comfortable with it and he understands how to be away from me, and that allows me to go and enjoy my work trips, my layovers with my crew members, and not have to necessarily worry about home. So it's been interesting to see the dynamic as a flight attendant who's married, because a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm married, I could never be a flight attendant, or I have family, I could never be a flight attendant, but that's actually not true. There are lots of flight attendants and pilots that are married and have families and have absolutely wonderful relationships that work quite well while they're on the road.
I love that discovery. What is the favorite place that you've been to?
I would definitely have to say my favorite place in this world that I've been to so far is Croatia. Last year, we spent 7 days in Dubrovnik, and it was just an absolutely magical place.
Oh my goodness, that's one of those places I have not been. I have to go there. I've heard it's just amazing. And what's the next place you're traveling to? Do you even know?
I do. We are going to Prague again for the second time this year. And also we're going to spend a couple of days in Vienna.
Oh my goodness, Prague is one of my favorite cities of all time. And I'm actually going to Vienna for the first time ever next month. I'm really looking forward to it. Have you been?
No, I haven't. So this is our first time as well, and we're definitely looking forward to it. I'm gonna get some of that the soccer tort. So
yes, exactly.
I should probably be looking forward to the opera houses and all these things. I'm really looking forward to the cake.
I'll tell you, some of the places I go, Greece, Israel, they have bakeries, it seems like, on every corner, and I can't help myself. I mean, I just stop and I'll buy one pastry and I'll try it out, and I'll go to the next one and try it out. I was just in Romania, and they have gelato places everywhere, and I was just so guilty. I had to work out for like 24 hours straight just to burn off all the gelato that I had. So tell us, Mia, the life of a flight attendant, is it as glamorous and amazing as we look at it, or is it sort of kind of like any other job?
Well, I will say there are times it can be either or. When I'm walking through the airport in my heels and the wind's in my hair and I'm pulling my suitcase, that's about as glamorous as it gets. When I'm on the plane and someone gets sick and I have to clean it up, or, I'm slinging bags in the overhead bin, or, those, not so much glamorous. But I think that's, like you said, every profession has that. You've got your moments when you're like, this is the best job ever. And you've got those moments where you're like, what was I thinking?
Right. Well, I mean, with putting all those bags up ahead and helping to rearrange them, I'd imagine that'll work off all those calories from those bakeries and pastries you're going to eat. Yeah. Why did you want to be a flight attendant in the first place?
Well, honestly, it wasn't by choice. I was kind of
Really?
pushed. I was kind of pushed into it. My mom was a flight attendant for Braniff back when flying was glamorous all the time. And my aunt flew for Delta for 25 years. She retired from there.
So it's in your blood.
It is. And my grandfather was a mechanic for TWA. So
Oh my
it
gosh.
absolutely is like the family business, only we don't own an airline. So that was
That's
kind of our
great.
thing.
So when you became a flight attendant, Did you think to yourself, yeah, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life?
Oh no. I don't know many people that actually say that. I think most flight attendants are like, oh, I'll fly for a couple of years until I figure out what I want to do. And then 20 years later, they're like telling new hires, yeah, I said that same thing. We'll see you in 20 years.
Right, because a lot of flight attendants and airlines, I mean, it's run on seniority, right? I mean,
Yeah.
for your airline, does seniority dictate the routes that you get, the times when you work?
Absolutely. And, the longer you're there, the better the trips get. I mean, there are ladies who fly to London or Rome or Paris trips a month. They work a total of 8 days. And I, at my seniority, can work 20 days and I still don't make what they make. And I'm going to like Columbus or, Des
Mm,
Moines. So it's definitely seniority is where it's at.
mm. And so did I read correctly? This is your second tour of duty as a flight attendant. You left for a couple of years, right?
I did. I did. I flew back in the late 90s. I'm obviously dating myself now. Late 90s to early 2000s, and then I took about a 13-year gap, and then I recently went back.
Why'd you go back?
I think well, no, I know I got sick of working 50-hour weeks and
Mm,
just not having a life. And, I worked in the corporate public relations industry, and it's very demanding. And in the entertainment division where I worked, there's always events and parties and premieres and all that stuff in the evening and then on the weekends. So I really just had no life. So I said, I know how I can just sort of take a little pressure off and then still do something where I get to interact with people and things like that. And I just asked my husband, I go, what do you think about me going back to flying? And he goes, I don't know. Tell me about this flying thing. And I said, well, you get to fly first class free. He's like, sign, go, 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 go.
I love that, of course, of course. Listeners, we're going to be asking Mia about tips for travelers, and if you don't frequently fly, or if you are a frequent flyer, what she would advise for you to do, the do's and the don'ts of being in an airplane. We're going to ask her that a little bit later on. But first, Mia, I'm really curious how your job, the job of a flight attendant, has changed through the years. I think you have a unique perspective. You've sort of spanned 2 decades here, and you started, and then you left, and then you came back. What are the kinds of changes that you've seen in that time? Obviously, 9/11 happened, but tell us about how being a flight attendant has changed.
Well, I think pre 9/11, I think flying was much more, much calmer. I
Mm,
think it was, people looked at it as the transportation industry. It was a means of, transportation to get from one place to another. It was nice if you got a meal and if you had this and that. And it wasn't the hostile environment that it is today.
interesting.
Or,
Hostile environment. Interesting.
well, I just, now it just seems like, you know, the fares are lower, which is fantastic. It allows more people to travel, which is great. But that comes at a cost. Some of the amenities are taken away, and like a couple of airlines have announced their basic economy fares, and but you can't bring a bag on, you can't do this, you can't do that. But people are upset about that, but there are still regular fares. So it's kind of like, you want the low fares, but you want all the amenities to go with it. And, there's no free meals on the flights anymore. And, it's just a very different environment. And then you've got TSA, and people are getting upset at, going through there, their bags are getting taken or they're being harassed by TSA. So it seems like by the time they get on the plane, everybody's pretty much had a rough go of the airport. So it just seems a little bit more hostile than it used to be. Not everybody, of course, not everybody, because I have flights that, everybody's laughing and joking, just having a great time. But, you've got these long rolling delays and cancellations that I think people just react differently now than they did back then. But I don't know why.
For many people, a flight attendant is the face of the airline, whether it's a
Right.
weather delay or you don't know the gate they need, or perhaps they've just found out that basic economy fare doesn't come with a bag in the overhead bin, or whatever it happens to be. You're really the face of that airline to them in that moment of frustration.
Absolutely. And and I understand that because most people, when they have a complaint, you're going to go to the person that's right there. Even if you're in the store and you're going to say, hey, can you find this for me? And they can't find it, you're going to tell that person your frustrations. So I understand that. And I always listen because in any situation where someone's upset, they just want to be heard. So I always listen and then try to find a solution. But a lot of people give us a lot more credit than we need because there are a lot of things that flight attendants don't know. I mean,
Now,
we
wait a minute.
have,
I thought you knew everything. Come on now,
well,
Mia.
personally, I do, of course. I mean, of course. But like, we don't know the baggage situations. We don't have a computer that will give us that information. Some people say, well, I checked my bag at the gate, and is it going to go to my destination or is it going to go to our connection? And the most I can say is, let me see your tag, your luggage tag that they gave you. And it'll say right on there, like that I can do. But if they're allowed to pick up their bag in between flights, or do they have to go outside of this or that? I'm like, I don't know. So there are things that we don't know. Like, we can't tell you that they're going to hold your plane if our plane is late. Most airlines don't do that anymore unless there is a significant amount of passengers on board, 20, 30 people going all to the same flight. Normally that doesn't happen, but most people want an answer from us. And sometimes we just can't give it. So that's why, it's kind of hard in those times. But for the most part, we will try to get a resolution.
Listeners, we've done reporting on the basic economy fares that Mia just mentioned at voyagereport.com, and all of the major airlines in the U.S., the big three, American, United, and Delta, has rolled them out. I think Delta pretty much covers the board now. United has rolled them out to all their routes in the continental 48 states. American is rolling them out. And so listeners, if you haven't come across these basic economy fares, you should certainly read up on it. A lot of times you'll board last. You won't have any luggage in the overhead bin. No changes, no refunds, no upgrades if you're an elite, and it goes on and on and on. Although, on the other hand, you may save $20, $30, $40, but of course, buyer beware. Mia, have you noticed at all in your 10 or 15 years combined as a flight attendant, a change in how people greet flight attendants specifically?
Yes, definitely. As I was saying earlier, the whole vibe of the airline and airports and all those things have definitely changed. When I'm working first class and I'm there and I'm saying hi, good morning, good afternoon, whatever. Some people don't even look me in the eye, and half the people don't even say anything, even if they do.
As they're boarding or during the flight?
As they're boarding,
Yeah, they just
and
walk
some
on
people,
by.
yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay, see you later, and then sometimes when we're doing service, everybody's got their headphones on, they've got their electronics, they're watching their movies or reading their books, and they don't take their headphones off, and we're like, can I get you something to drink? And they just look at us. We're like, hello, take off your headphones. Can we get you something to drink? And so it's kind of like there's almost a disconnect. Everybody gets on and they're kind of in their own little world. Before it was people were talking to their neighbors, and it was just more camaraderie on the airplane. And now it's kind of everybody's in their own little world, doing their own little thing in their seat.
We've seen a lot of viral videos in the last couple of months. I don't know what it is about 2017, but starting in March, we saw them. Of course, most people remember Dr. David Dow being dragged through the aisle of a United Airlines plane. We've had the incident, I think it was on American, with the woman with the stroller, and I mean, on and on and on. Do you just sort of approach your job now that, hey, you have to assume you're on camera at all times?
Yes, and I'll tell you the problem with that. There isn't a problem with doing your job like someone's watching. There's no problem with that whatsoever, because you should always be doing what your company, instills their policies and procedures. That should always be the way that you perform your job daily. But there is always another side of that camera. So usually those cameras come on when the situation has already escalated. It's very rare that you see what led to that escalation. So some of these videos, you've got maybe a flight attendant said, can you please turn your phone off, which is an FAA regulation, which we have to say that. And then someone gets upset and they say, I want your name. And so even if I'm doing my job the way I'm supposed to do my job, someone can still threaten me with a camera.
Right.
But for me, honestly, that's fine. You're more than welcome to, say that you're going to film me or something, even though it's against the airline's rule. But I don't have a problem with that because I know I'm doing my job properly. But it's definitely a little bit, I don't want to say scarier, but it's a little strange because you don't want to, no one should be afraid to do their job because someone is threatening a video of you to put it online or something. That's definitely something that's changed since the last time I was a flight attendant. We didn't have that before. There was no social media. People wrote a letter. There was no email.
Right.
So it's different.
All right, let's talk about some do's and some don'ts. So first of all, if I'm listening correctly, you want passengers to say hello or return the greeting when they come on board. It sounds like you'd rather they take off their headphones or stop reading when they're being addressed. What about safety videos? I noticed that when the videos play, and if we're in confession, perhaps I need to confess that once in a while I'm not paying attention to the safety video and I'm reading my newspaper.
Shame.
Well, I know. Thank you. I'm confessing to you. Should passengers stop what they're doing and either watch the video or watch the flight attendants in the aisle?
I think they should because accidents happen for the most part during takeoff and landing. And either maybe you don't want to watch the entire safety video, maybe you don't like looking at the flight attendants. I don't know. But there's a safety card in your seat pocket. If you're in an exit row, pick up the safety card, just take a look at it, see how the door operates, just so that everyone around you, including you, make sure you're safe, that you know how to open that exit in case there is an emergency. That the safety video and all that they're there for a reason. So, you would hate for a door not to be opened and something to happen because someone didn't know how to open it or, something like that. So it's very important. It's boring, but it's important.
Yeah, I wish I had it in front of me. I remember reading a study a couple of years ago that showed that there was a significant difference in how you responded in the event of an unexpected incident, whether it be on takeoff or landing or during the flight, if you had just read the safety card or listened to the briefing. Those who had listened to it on that flight where they made something happen, the researchers made something happen, they were more likely to respond correctly. And and so it's top of mind. What are some other do's and don'ts for passengers?
Oh, this one is a good one. Probably most people should follow this. Don't go into the bathroom without your shoes on. That's not water on the floor. Just please don't do that. We have people who bring their kids in there with no shoes and or their kids, they put their Cheerios on the tray tables. Those tray tables are not cleaned between flights. People change their baby's diapers on those, and then you're the next person in the seat, and you put your food there, and the airplanes are not the cleanest places in the world. So just use more caution when, walking around and doing things at your seat. That's probably pretty important.
All right, I feel bad, but I have to make another confession, Mia. I actually bring those disinfectant wipes with me. And when I sit down, I'm the weird guy that's using the wipe on the tray table or the hand rest or the seatbelt or whatever, because I know that they're not cleaned in between uses. And, I don't want virus or Ebola or whatever it happens to be, on that flight. So I'm one of those guys, but, I'd rather be safe than sorry, knowing that they're not cleaned all the time.
I'm the flight attendant in uniform when I'm deadheading, and I pull out my wipes and I'm wiping it down, and I see people kind of chuckle and they look at me. I'm like, "Hey, do you want some?"
And by deadheading, you mean going to work or coming back from work when you're not actually working the flight, but you're flying on that aircraft.
Yes, I'm flying basically as a passenger to either begin or end my trip somewhere in the system. So yes.
And we're talking to you from Redondo Beach, so I assume that is LAX your base?
LAX is my base.
So that's where you start and end your trips, right?
Yes.
Yep.
But, sometimes in the middle of a trip, maybe I'm in Miami and we're doing another flight out of Orlando later. They could basically reposition us, and then we would deadhead to that next. We're not working that flight, so they would just send us as passengers to the next city so we can pick up our trip there. So it's not an everyday thing. It's kind of It's kind of rare, but we like it because we get to sit down.
Right. Yeah. You're not doing a lot of sitting down when you're working the flight.
Yeah.
Other do's and don'ts. I see flight attendants a lot having to rearrange bags and all that stuff. Is that part of your job? I always sort of feel bad for the flight attendants when they have to, when some clueless passenger comes on and they put the bag, long ways instead of, wheels in first or something, and you're just sort of having to reshuffle all those bags.
Well, technically, it is not part of our job to put the bags in the overhead bins for the passengers, because if we were injured, it's not covered by workers' comp.
Wow.
Because our company tells us you are not supposed to lift bags for passengers. We can assist, like help guide it in if they lift it, and then, we can kind of push it in there and we can kind of twist it around. And a lot of people say, well, I think that's rude. Why wouldn't you help us? And then I think I have, on one of our planes, 200 people. If I do a flight like that for 4 days in a row, 3 or 4 different flights a day, and I'm helping everybody put their bags overhead, you can imagine how over time that would start to wear on my body. If somebody flies once a year or even once a month and they're putting their bags overhead, it's nothing like what we're doing. It's not us trying to be mean. It's just, we don't want to get hurt.
Of course not. Yeah, of course not. What about when you do help a passenger, whether it be with a bag or perhaps you just make their day or something, and they want to hand you a tip? Has anyone ever handed you a tip? Can you accept cash gratuities or a box of chocolates or whatever they may want to give you?
So we are not supposed to take any cash tips. And I say not supposed to. Sometimes the passengers will, they'll try and give us a tip and we're like, oh no, we can't take it. And they'll give it to the captain and say, this is for your crew or something like that. But we absolutely love it when people bring us chocolates or, really anything. Even we don't expect it. You don't have to bring the flight attendants something. You don't need to bribe us to be nice to you or anything like that. But honestly, when we have long days, chocolate goes a long way to keeping us happy.
Will it get you an upgrade?
Well, no. I mean, we don't have any control over that. And, you've got, if 20 people bring us chocolate and there's one seat, we can't handle that. So
whose chocolate is from C's and who's not?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
We brought it directly from Switzerland, and what do we have? So no, we can't do that, but we do enjoy the little gifts here and there, or even handwritten notes. I've gotten a lot of notes from or pictures from little kids.
Really?
I got a nice card from a lady who wrote it at her seat and just told me how she enjoyed, my service, and those things are, better than chocolate. Just knowing someone actually appreciates what you're doing, that makes a difference.
What about during turbulence? I'm always worried for you guys when you've got the carts, you're doing the food service or the beverage service, and the seatbelt sign is on for us, and the turbulence gets going. I'm always so worried for you.
Well, that's when we do our core workout. We're holding on and we're trying not to fall.
They should put seatbelts on the carts or something so you can strap in. I don't know, or keep grounded or something. Well,
we're so used to it. We're actually more worried about the passengers and getting the carts put away than we are about ourselves getting hurt. And most reports that you've heard probably about, moderate or severe turbulence, usually it's a flight attendant that gets hurt because we're trying to get everything secured to make sure the passengers don't get hurt. And we're usually less worried about ourselves, even though we should be, because, we need to be there for you guys the whole time. But, we just want to make sure that there's nothing flying around. The cart's not going to, fly in the air and fall on somebody's head. And we just want to make sure that everything is safe and secure.
Listeners, Mia documents some of her journeys and some of her travels on social media, on Twitter and Facebook at Travel with Mia. She also has a travel blog. It's travelwithmia.com. We're going to ask her about a couple of her posts a little bit later on. Mia, do you have a favorite route, a route that you love to fly?
I don't. I try to tailor my trips according to the weather. I don't want to be on the East Coast when the storms or when it's snow because then the flights are delayed, or I just don't like the cold or the snow. So in the wintertime, I want to stay on the West Coast, usually because it's nice and warm and mild. In the, in the summertime, anywhere is fair game. I'm open, but I don't really have any favorite routes. I just kind of go where they send me, and I always meet somebody nice and just enjoy my trip. So
Well, I know that having to work the LAX to Hawaii route must be a real burden. So it's wonderful that you are able to step in there and
so
volunteer.
accommodating.
So accommodating, and you're sparing your other flight attendants that
No,
laborious route. That's very kind of you.
it's true. That's true. I don't want anybody to be put out, so I'll do it. I'll do it.
Do you have a favorite type of airplane? There are all these the 787, the new airplanes, the big planes, the Boeing 777, and now, of course, we're seeing the retirement of the 747, the Queen of the Skies. United and Delta, I think, are the last two domestic airlines that fly it, and they've both committed to retiring it by the end of 2017. Do you have a favorite bird to fly?
I think the 777-300 series is probably my favorite. There are 8 first class seats, I think 50 something business seats, and so on. That it's just a beautiful, beautiful, very modern, very sleek plane. And the Dreamliner, they're both just so modern. The big, windows. You've got there are no shades. You can sort of there's like a little button where the window kind of changes colors, sort of
I love that. Yeah, the
opaque.
digital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very fancy. So I'm liking those. I mean, even the 737 is a nice plane. It's, get you there and back. But I think I like sleek and new. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not a specific plane, just new and clean and sleek.
Well, what I love about the 787 is that not only is it made with composite parts and all that stuff, but I think the cabin pressurization is different, and the humidity level. You just feel not as dry as on some other aircraft.
That's very true. It's much better, and your ears don't pop as much. So it's definitely has a much better pressurization system,
What about
which makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. What about electronics on a flight? We've just had the electronics ban that was instituted in, I think it was March, and now it's been lifted for the 10 airports that it was in place for. Now, just today, as a matter of fact, as we're taping this podcast, we have a story up on voyagereport.com that large electronics, bigger than a cell phone, on domestic routes here in the U.S. now have to be taken out of carry-on luggage for extra screening. What kind of a hassle do the electronics cause you in flight, if any?
Well, in flight, electronics don't bother us at all. I mean, I personally want people to have their laptops if you're a business traveler and you have work to do. I think you should be able to do that. If you're not a business traveler, if you want to watch a movie, listen to music, I think it's more important for people to have their devices. People like to be connected today. So I think that's very important. I think it's very scary for a lot of people to have to check their devices because sometimes there's theft in the cargo hold. And, people are worried. Am I going to get there? Is my laptop going to be there? Is my camera going to be there? You don't know. But then you've also got the issue with the lithium batteries that are not supposed to go in checked luggage. So you're like, do I leave my laptop at home? But I need it, but I can't check it. There's just so many variables. So I'm glad that that's no longer an issue. I think that was, yeah, I don't think that was a good idea.
Well, listeners, if you do need tips for your checked gadgets, even if you're not on an electronics ban flight, just go to voyagereport.com and search the word gadgets. We've got a whole tip sheet for you there. Mia, this is a little delicate, so let me phrase this very diplomatically. What about passengers getting intimate on flights? Does that really happen, or is that just a movie thing?
No, that happens.
How do you
It
deal with
happens.
that? I mean, that's so awkward, right?
It is awkward, but I don't embarrass easily, so maybe that's bad for them, not really for me. The main reason why two people can't go into a bathroom together on the airplane is there's only one oxygen mask. So if we have a decompression, only one of you is going to live. So if getting intimate is that important, that's fine, but you're gonna have to do it on your own time because that's not gonna happen on my plane. So
Or bring an extra oxygen tank. That's the moral of the story.
Exactly. Come prepared, basically.
How about some of your favorite stories? In your years of being a flight attendant, are there anecdotes or memories that stick out to you that were particularly impressive?
There's so many, but I would say I remember, and it's kind of twofold. It's a little bit about my mom and a little bit about me, but I remember when I was younger, I would go on my mom's layovers when she was a flight attendant. And, I was a little kid. I thought I was cute. I'm like, I'm going to be a flight attendant when I get older. And all her friends were like, oh, that's so cute. Well, later on, I ended up flying with a lady that my mom had flown with. And she's like, wait, you're a flight attendant now? How old am I?
Wow.
So
Wow.
it was actually really nice because I did remember her. And, we sent my mom some pictures when we flew together. It was a very nice time. So I thought that was nice.
A slight detour here. I had a similar experience when I was in school. I had some of the same teachers my mom had. And so they would come up to me and say, wait a minute, are you the Mark that I think you are? And then they were like, oh my goodness, I feel so old. But that's a great story. Let's get to some tips for travelers, both for the frequent traveler, who just may be so used to it all now, they're not doing things they should, or tips that you have for them, and those that are infrequent, that may not fly for years, and what they should know. So let's start off with the frequent flyers. Perhaps a little scolding is in order if you'd like, or perhaps just a friendly reminder. What are some tips that you have for frequent flyers?
Well, I think this probably goes for frequent and infrequent flyers. I think research, 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 research. I think so many people just sort of buy their ticket. I'm going here. I need to get, I'm going from here to here, and I need to be there on this date. And then they're like, oh, I'll go with this airline. I know who it is, and just book it and forget about it. There are so many different websites out there where you can get a great deal. You can, there's just better opportunities maybe lurking out there. Don't just log on and go straight to that airline's website. Look around and see what kind of deals you can find. There's a lot out there. I mean, definitely for the infrequent flyers, maybe they don't know that they could go spend a week in Europe for the same price that they could go to Disneyland for 4 days. So just research is really big for everybody.
Absolutely. In fact, that's one of the things that I think travelers don't know. And one of the things we try to teach them on our deals page, voyagereport.com/deals, is that there are so many low-cost carriers now across the Atlantic, for example, that are causing fares to go down. I mean, I'm going to Poland and Austria and Slovakia, and the round-trip airfare was $452. I mean, my goodness, I might pay more to go see my folks in L.A.
It's so true.
Yeah, it's opened up so many doors for people. I think there's this false assumption that you have to have $5,000 in 2 months or 2 weeks to go anywhere.
Right.
And it's just not true. You don't need to have that anymore.
It's true. And I understand that, we as Americans don't have the type of vacation time that they do in Europe and other places. But as I said, once you research, it really doesn't take that long to get to Europe. I mean, if you're on the East Coast, it's 7 hours. It takes, an hour less to get to the West Coast. So, if you really look around, and like you said, a lot of the low cost carriers have really changed things now. But I think people still think, oh no, it's too expensive to go to Europe. I mean, my husband and I wanted to go to Kansas City to visit my grandparents. It was $800.
Wow.
And I thought, I love you guys. Maybe we can Skype. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I've gone to Australia for less than that. So
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. What about for those infrequent travelers? Perhaps they're scared of flying. I know people that are. What are some tips for infrequent travelers?
I would say, definitely if you are afraid of flying, when you get on the plane, let the flight attendants know.
Really? They can tell you?
Yes, please. We really want to know. I mean, not everybody does what we do. Not everybody travels all the time. And there are lots of sounds on the aircraft that can be a little alarming if you don't know what they are and you've never heard them before. Let us know so we can keep an eye on you. We want to make sure, do you need some water? Are you hot? Or, we don't want anybody to get sick because they're so afraid. A lot of times we'll just have them come back and hang out with us, and so we can talk and, whatever. We just want to know that everyone on the aircraft is okay. So I definitely want to know if you're afraid, because there's nothing to be afraid of.
Listeners, Mia has some great advice and trip reports from her time and traveling and all the countries she's been to on her travel blog. You can check it out at travelwithmia.com. She's got posts such as eating Europe food tours. Oh, my goodness, I'm hungry already. Uber around the world, best and worst experiences. And by the way, let me just say, I mean, Uber, and I don't want to pick on anybody, so there are other ride-hailing apps you can use, but they are amazing. I mean, I've used Uber in Taiwan and Peru and Romania, same app. They do all the currency conversion for you, so definitely ride-hailing is an option. Christmas markets in Zurich, Switzerland. And one of my favorite posts, love and passports. One couple, 5 years, 10 countries. Does your husband come along?
He did. And we're actually now, we just celebrated our 6th year and we're at 21 countries, I believe.
Oh, I love that.
We don't mess around.
No, well, if you get the benefits, why not? Right? I mean,
Exactly.
He flies for free, right?
He does. And, he's been a good sport. I try to drag him around the world with me, and a couple of my friends made fun of me the other day for saying that, and they're like, "Oh, how awful to be dragged to Paris and London and Rome." I'm like, "Yeah, but I took him to Bosnia and to Turkey and a couple other places that he didn't necessarily know he wanted to go, but when he went, he had fun." So I do drag him around.
Absolutely. Let me just put this out there. Anyone who's listening, any flight attendant, if nobody will go with you on your free passes, I am always available. Let me just say that. I've got to get to every country in the world. There's 198, and I've only been to 55 or whatever it is. It's
I think you can do it.
I've got a ways to go. In fact, one of our podcasts we just did a couple weeks ago was with a 24-year-old Eric T. Wynn. He just broke the world record for getting to every country in the world. He did it in 24 years in like 150 some days.
Oh my gosh.
I definitely didn't do that, I'll tell you that much.
No, me neither.
So why did you start the website? I mean, you were just going to all these places and you thought, hey, I should share all this knowledge with somebody.
No, I'm on Facebook and I don't like it when people just post picture after picture after picture. I didn't want to annoy people with all of my vacation photos. But my family was like, well, we want to see what you guys did and this place or that place. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to start a website and I will put them there and you can go look and you can comment and, have at it. But in my previous career as a publicist, writing was a large part of my job, and I have a degree in communication, so I really did miss writing. I miss that the creativity, that just something that is a part of me. So I thought, I'm back to traveling, I'm back to flying, I'm traveling a lot, I miss writing, maybe I can put the two together and then go from there.
And so how long will you keep writing for the website, and how long will you keep flying?
Well, I will keep writing until, no one wants to read it anymore, or until my grandparents tell me to stop because it's boring. As for flying, I will keep doing it as long as I'm enjoying it. I really don't want to be one of those people that's, sticks around just because, I don't want to be this old bitter flight attendant who's angry at everybody just because they're there. I'll stay as long as I'm happy, and maybe I will be 90 and happy. You never know. So
Mia Herman is a flight attendant at a major U.S. airline. You can follow her journeys on her website, travelwithmia.com, and on social media. She's on Twitter and Facebook at Travel with Mia. Mia, thank you so much for answering all these questions and being so candid and honest with us. We sure hope we'll see you in the skies.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Listeners, do you have any questions for flight attendants? Do you now want to be a flight attendant? Let us know by rating this podcast, giving us a review, and sharing it on social media. We have guests every week talking about travel news and trends, so be sure to subscribe to our podcast. We'd sure appreciate your review. It helps bring more awareness to our journalism and original content. And if you have an idea for a future guest on our podcast, please reach out at voyagereport.com and let us know. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Mark Albert. Bon voyage.
You've been listening to the Voyage Report podcast. Get the scoop on travel at voyagereport.com.